I'm Rose Mercier with The Governance Coach. This is my colleague, Joe Inskeep. We're at a conference where there are a lot of board members who are interested in and already perhaps involved in policy governance. But we also have lots of board members who are here really trying to figure out whether policy governance would work for their board. Joe, in your experience, what do you think it is that leads board members or boards to really look into policy governance?
Yeah, lots of reasons. I think boards come with their own set of reasons for looking into policy governance. I mean, there are so many good people that want to help their organizations and serve in good ways. Some of them are fortunate enough to land on effective boards, and maybe even more particularly, effective boards are looking for ways to improve. So even the most effective boards will sometimes look toward policy governance because it's a complete description of board work, all that's necessary to govern well and to do that job well. And effective boards can find ways to make improvements by adopting policy governance as well. It's like a good gardener in a beautiful garden. You do a walkabout, you always find some plants that need attention. Even effective boards find ways to improve when they adopt policy governance. But most of us don't end up on boards as effective as we hoped they would be. And it's no, it's no wonder. I mean, we don't do much, we don't have a history of board education. And every craft, every skill, every profession, people learn how to do their work. But for some reason we join boards and off we go. And there's so much more to it than that. So boards without a model that clearly defines what their work is and how to do it well, they'll struggle, and that's a natural thing. That struggle takes a lot of shapes. Sometimes it has to do, maybe most often has to do with, since they don't know as much about governance as they would have hoped, they end up being pulled by the gravity of operations, and they get involved in decisions and discussions that are below their level, below the board level, involved in minutia, fingers in the organization. So really, that creates problems both for the board and for the CEO. It doesn't feel particularly satisfying to be on that kind of a board. A board shouldn't be satisfied with that kind of work. Some boards begin to look around for a better way. Policy governance is one of the few that's out there that is integrated, principled, very well thought out, and contains all the necessary aspects of successful board work. So some boards find it. Now, having found it, Rose, what do you think are the kinds of decisions that they have to take to end up taking the plunge and making the decision to use policy governance?
Well, Joe, there's boards who are intentional about wanting to improve their governance will look at policy governance, and what they may do is to focus just on policy governance and really do a deep dive, trying to figure out how it would work, how it would affect their organization. Other boards might take perhaps a larger context and try to look at policy governance in comparison to other approaches to governing that's out there. There's a variety of ways that they can do, whether it's a narrow focus or it's a broader focus. They can investigate through on their as a whole in terms of maybe perhaps having a presentation or something on policy governance. So they might strike a committee whose job it is to go out and find information, to find articles, to find examples, to find stories from other boards. They might invite other boards to meet with them or representatives of other boards that are already using policy governance so they can get a sense of what it might involve. They could also have a workshop. They could invite someone like you, Joe, an outside expert who can talk to them about policy governance. And one of the other things that I think would be really valuable too is that they could look at our website, which has a variety of really useful resources for boards that are looking at policy governance. In fact, we have a newsletter from January 2017 that really is about policy governance. It's not rocket science. It looks at policy governance from a lot of different angles that I think would be really helpful for a board. But regardless of how the board goes about getting that information, it should arrive at a point where it's confident that it understands a little bit more than it did when it started about what the impact would be of adopting policy governance, how its roles might change. It should have considered what's the time and resources we need to invest in making ourselves more effective. And then because we cannot ever figure out, what the journey will look like exactly. Sometimes boards just need to jump in with both feet and take a leap of faith.